You believe the outer world must change first, that the cause must appear before the effect can follow. Yet the truth is far stranger than that. You wait for signs. You look for proof. You watch the 3D world to tell you when the inner work has taken root. But the more you watch, the more distant the change appears. For what you call evidence is only the delayed echo of a state you no longer occupy. You ask light to show you the beginning, not knowing the beginning is born from the very end. You refuse to assume. And so you struggle, wondering why nothing moves. You try to feel what you have never lived. You try to summon a sense that seems impossible. You try to become something your world has not yet confirmed, and the effort leaves you weary. But the failure was never in your ability. It was in the order you assumed. For reality does not begin with cause, then travel to effect. In the inner world, the effect becomes the cause. Adopt the feeling of the end, and the beginning must rearrange itself. Take the tone of fulfillment, and life will bend to reflect it. Stay with me, and I will show you how the unseen law works in silence. The law of reversibility is the simple yet solemn truth that every effect carries within itself the power to become its own cause. Men judge by sequence. They see a beginning, then an end, a seed, then a harvest. But in the inner man, the line is folded, and the end rests in the beginning, as surely as the oak sleeps in its acorn. When I speak of reversibility, I speak of this hidden link, that what you accept as true in the depths becomes the force that summons the very facts it implies. The world you touch is but the shadow cast by an assumption held long ago, and the echo cannot precede the voice that called it forth. Understand this, and you stand at the threshold of creation. You have been taught to trace life backward from cause to effect, yet the scriptures speak otherwise. Declare the end from the beginning, says the prophet, not as a poet's flourish, but as a statement of law, for the beginning takes its shape from the end you dare to accept. When the mind moves to the conclusion of a desire and rests there as though it were already done, it plants a seed that must unfold in time, not by strain nor by striving, but by the quiet certainty that the unseen root will one day rise into visible form. This is reversibility. The end held in imagination becomes the secret cause of the events that bridge to its fulfillment. No man can escape this order, for consciousness is the only true causation. To understand reversibility is to cease wrestling with appearances, for appearances are but the garment of an older assumption, and no garment can outlive the pattern from which it was cut. When you look to the world to tell you what is possible, you bind yourself to the past, but when you assume the end, you loosen the old pattern and allow a new one to be woven. In this law, there is no uncertainty, for the effect, once imagined, becomes the shaping force. Take the tone of the fulfilled desire into your being, and let the outer world take care of its own rearrangement. For as the ancient teaching declares, it is finished, and from that completion, the path is born. The great misunderstanding is the belief that you must feel the literal emotion of an experience you have never lived. Men try to summon the thrill of wealth, the warmth of companionship, the security of success, and finding no such feeling in the senses, they conclude the law has failed them. But I never asked you to imitate the emotion itself. I asked you to rest in the essence, the quiet tone that accompanies the fulfilled desire. The senses cannot supply it, for the senses only report the past. Yet imagination moves beyond the borders of memory. To ask the senses for proof of what is not yet seen is to seek the living among the dead. The tone is not an emotion you force, it is a condition you accept. When I speak of feeding the end, I do not ask you to create excitement or passion. Those are the garments of outer events, and the outer cannot give birth to the inner. What I ask is the atmosphere of completion, the gentle certainty that accompanies a prayer already answered. It is the same stillness a man feels after a storm has passed, though no wind has touched him. The same inward quiet that comes when a burden lifts, though nothing outward has changed. This is the feeling the scriptures speak of when they say, when ye pray, believe that ye have received. They do not command emotion, they command acceptance. Acceptance is the root. Emotion is only the leaf. The world has taught you to wait for the senses to instruct you on what is true. But the senses are the last to know. If you depend on literal emotion, you will wait forever. For emotion belongs to the harvest, not the seed. All I ask is that you enter the mood of the wish fulfillment as quietly as one slips into a familiar room. A slight shift, a gentle inward leaning, a soft acknowledgement that the end is already yours. No drama, no strain, no attempt to mimic a future thrill. Simply the tone, the invisible signature of the state you choose to occupy. And once that tone is accepted, the bridge to its unfolding begins. To practice reversibility, begin always with the effect, not the cause. The clearest approach is the art of hearing from the end. Imagine you overhear a friend speaking of your desire as something already settled, not with excitement, but with the calm certainty of a completed fact. You are not constructing a scene of effort. You are intercepting a consequence. A single phrase is enough, for the effect carries its own logic. In that imagined sound, you receive the end, and the end becomes the origin point from which the entire sequence must unfold. This is not speculation. It is the law in motion. Another application is the golden rule, understood in this creative dimension. Assume for another what you would claim for yourself, not as sentiment, but as spiritual causation. When you imagine a friend established, provided for, or lifted into the result you desire, you are not sending a blessing outward. You are engraving a pattern within. For consciousness does not divide its harvest. What you decree for another becomes the state you occupy, and the state you occupy becomes the cause of your world. Thus the law reveals its symmetry, for the effect bestowed is the cause inherited. Consider also the implied scene, where you bypass the moment of attainment and enter the moment that can exist only if the attainment is complete. A woman once told me she could not feel the end for herself. So I asked her to imagine something structural, returning home from her first day in the position she longed for. No interview, no striving, no drama, only the ordinary act of hanging her coat in a home she now returned to as one already employed. Within a short time, the offer arrived, not because she forced an image, but because the act she imagined implied the end as fact. The scene that follows the fulfillment is the fulfillment. And when that effect is accepted, the cause is already set. Begin from the end, and the world must answer. Reversibility works because consciousness is the sole architect of sequence. What you accept as true in imagination becomes the pattern from which the events of your life are compelled to unfold. The world does not originate cause, it only delivers the consequences of an unseen arrangement already established within. When the end is assumed, you have fixed the blueprint, and the blueprint governs the structure that must rise from it. No outer fact possesses the power to alter this inner decree, for the shadow cannot resist the body that casts it. The end is the cause, and the cause is unalterable once accepted. This law functions because every state contains within itself the chain of incidents that belong to it. When you inhabit a state, you do not merely hold a feeling, you adopt an entire world, complete with its future. The moment the end is taken as real, the sequence that leads to it is set in motion with mathematical precision. Men call this coincidence or fortune, but it is neither. It is the lawful unfolding of a pattern you have already chosen. The effect you assumed becomes the force that draws its own path into visibility, as iron filings move to the shape of the unseen magnet beneath. This is not mystery, it is order. Reversibility works because imagination does not hope, it commands. Whatever is established in the depth is transmitted outward, and the outer must conform to that transmission. You are not persuading circumstances. You are determining the axis upon which they must turn. Once the end is accepted, the world is summoned into alignment with it. Appearances may protest for a moment, but they cannot endure, for no fact has independent authority. It borrows its life from the state that produced it, and when the state changes, the fact must change. This is why Scripture declares, "My word shall not return unto me void," for the word is the imaginal act, and the fulfillment is its inevitable return. Walk now as the one who has already issued the decree. You are not waiting for fulfillment. You have altered its origin. What you have accepted in imagination has fixed the pattern, and the pattern governs the form that must rise from it. Do not descend into doubt, for doubt belongs to the world of appearances, and appearances possess no creative power. The cause is behind you, not ahead of you. The end you assumed has already begun to cast its shadow in time. Move as one who knows the law is engaged. When facts protest, remember their nature. A fact is only the remnant of a former state, lacking all authority once the state has changed. Treat it not as an obstacle, but as evidence that the old pattern is dissolving. The new state, once embraced, reorganizes the entire field of events. It selects its own companions, draws its own sequence, and rejects anything that does not belong to it. For no condition can survive when its root has been replaced. You alter the root the moment you assume the end. So stand in the dominion of the state you have chosen. Do not look for signs. Signs are the echo, not the cause. Do not ask when. Time is the servant of the state you occupy. Do not ask how. The law itself arranges the path. Your only task is fidelity to the end, for the end contains the way. Let the world conform to the pattern you have established, and refuse every suggestion that contradicts your imaginal act. Creation is finished in the depth, and what is finished there must appear here. Now, let us go into the silence.